she stepped up as my wife and handled that. And there's been many times where I've been at my lowest, and she's always been the strongest to get me back up to like, get back out there. You gotta get back out there and do what you do. Don't worry about what's happening over here. I'm gonna handle that.
There are moments when a private vow carries more weight than any public statement. She stepped up as my wife and handled that, he said. And it's been many times where I've been at my lowest, and she's always been the strongest to get me back out there. This is not a press release, not a police statement. It's the quiet talk that moves through private rooms, industry dinners, and hushed conversations. The kind of talk where a rumor stops feeling like speculation and starts feeling like a story everyone already knows. And this particular story has one trigger that keeps getting pulled. One name that yanks the entire narrative back to the same volatile place. The allegation was not simply that Snoop Dogg was angry with Diddy. In some corners, it was framed as something darker, more personal. People whispered it wasn't about money or power or a business deal gone wrong. It was about betrayal. Specifically, the idea that a name Shantae's name got pulled into Diddy's private orbit in a way Snoop Dogg could not ignore. The theory that spread online wasn't presented as a passing whisper. It was framed like a lit fuse, the ultimate violation. Something that, once it reached Snoop, could only end one way. And once that idea took hold, the rest of the story seemed to write itself. The timeline became its backbone. First, March 2024. Homeland Security raids on Diddy's homes in Los Angeles and Miami. A moment that transformed the situation from internet noise into something tangible and terrifyingly real. Then, September 16th, 2024. The arrest. These dates matter. They are the pillars people use to build the theory around Snoop. Because by the time of the arrest, the internet's version claims Snoop and Diddy had already gone silent, that they hadn't spoken in months, that something had fractured long before the public ever noticed, and that the breaking point wasn't a headline, it was her. Not a taped confession, not a signed document, just the kind of allegation that spreads like wildfire because it attacks the most protected part of a man's public image, his family. People claim Shantae's name was tied to Diddy's after-hours world in a way Snoop reportedly found unforgivable. And when people believe a marriage is under threat, they start looking for motives everywhere. They start asking how a federal case gets so detailed. Because one thing stood out. People didn't just talk about the scandal. They talked about the specifics.
Same kind of extortion that we heard when Cassie took the stand and testified on that airplane ride back from France. Diddy said, "You don't do a freak-off, I'm going to release one of the freak-off videos that you are profiled in and humiliate you."
The logistics, the locations, the coordination, that level of granular detail makes outsiders feel like someone on the inside had to have helped connect the dots. And that is where the theory pivots, hard, towards Snoop Dogg. Their legacies are tied to hip-hop's same golden era. Their circles overlapped for decades. But sources have long hinted that beneath the public smiles was a quiet, simmering competition. Snoop built an empire on longevity, loyalty, and reinvention. Diddy thrived on control, spectacle, and being the loudest presence in any room. And when Diddy's legal storm became a full public collapse, the rumor that refused to die was this. Investigators didn't stumble onto those details by accident. That someone with reach, with memory, someone who had been close enough to the machine, quietly pointed them toward the right dates, the right doors, the right people. In this theory, Snoop wasn't the headline. He was the compass. But to understand why Shantae's name carries such nuclear weight, you have to understand what she represents. This story doesn't start in a courtroom. It begins with a marriage. Shantae Broadus was born and raised in Long Beach. She met Calvin Broadus before the world knew him as Snoop Dogg when they were teenagers at Poly High. They went to prom. They built a history long before fame ever arrived. They married in June 1997, becoming one of hip-hop's rare constants. Shante was there through the death row wars, through industry shifts and broken alliances, through reinvention after reinvention as Snoop became a global brand. In 2021, she officially became his manager. He has called her his final gut check, the last voice he listens to, the one person who can tell him no when everyone else says yes.
The turmoil and the stuff that I put her through in my journey on becoming successful, because I had no understanding of what I was doing her, how I was hurting her.
So, when people say Shantae's name got dragged into Diddy's orbit, it doesn't land as random gossip. it lands as an attack on the foundation. The theory says Snoop didn't need court-admissible proof. He needed something believable enough to treat as a direct threat. And once he did, the rest became strategy. Then, another voice entered the chat, poking at the same wound, Suge Knight. From behind bars in early 2024, Suge taunted through media and podcasts. One moment went viral. A photo, a line, a jab, aimed directly at Shante, at the marriage, at Snoop's pride. Some saw it as desperate provocation. Others believe Suge knew exactly which nerve to strike, not for truth, but for reaction. The reaction wasn't explosive. It was quiet. Behind the scenes, Snoop was described as withdrawn, focused, colder. Like a man who decided the smartest move was not to argue in public, but to watch and to measure. Then the raids happened. Then the arrest. And suddenly, the rumor mill had a storyline that felt almost too clean. A quiet build, then a spectacular public collapse. The case itself became an engine for speculation. Legal claims described a hidden world of control and coercion, and the public kept circling one question: how did the investigation get so specific? How did it go from whispers to something that could be charged, argued, and sentenced? That question is why the rumor machine keeps returning to the idea of structured information. People claimed authorities had detailed logistics, not just stories that made the case feel organized. And in the court of public opinion, that kind of organization always points to an insider. So the theory points to Snoop again. He'd been around Diddy's world, but the narrative says he kept his distance after tensions began rising. Those who know him say Snoop has always been fiercely protective of two things: his image and Shantae's reputation.
When you get to be the age that we at and you get to become as successful as we are, you have to start doing some things that matter for the future.
Through his own past storms, Shante remained the anchor. By late 2023, she was managing the expansion of his brand into its broadest form yet. So, in this theory, the idea that her name was pulled into Diddy's scandal isn't just disrespect, it's a red line. And once a line like that is crossed, the theory says retaliation isn't loud, it's calculated. People who believe the theory trace this calculated move to early 2024. After the taunts, Snoop's public calm looked like dismissal, but privately, reports claimed he was furious. Then, within weeks, whispers began that federal investigators had reached out to a major industry figure for information on Diddy's network.
Your wife's been by you for your
She's
whole
your high
career.
school
Your high school sweetheart. She is.
Never leave home without it.
Yeah, that's right. But how has she kind of taken you on this journey? Tell us about her.
I think my wife has been my best friend for a couple of reasons. One is that she always understood who I was and who I needed to become.
And when Diddy was arrested, that figure, unnamed in official filings, was described in a way that made the internet jump. A longtime West Coast artist turned entrepreneur. To many, there was little doubt who that sounded like. Still, the theory isn't framed as revenge alone. It's framed as survival. The investigation touched dozens of celebrities. In that context, cooperating wouldn't just hurt a rival, it could protect your own family from being dragged into the blast radius. And that brings the story right back to Shante. Public sympathy leaned toward her, the loyal wife, the quiet force. But by early 2025, the internet began reading cracks into everything. Photos of Shante alone at events, carefully worded social media captions about trust and truth. Not proof, but fuel. And Suge Knight kept pushing, hinting, daring. Snoop's silence did the rest. While the trial played out in New York, Snoop stayed away. He publicly shut down questions only once. To casual observers, it looked like distance. To theorists, it looked like control, because prosecutors referenced third-party communications and corroborated accounts from private gatherings. And when people hear third-party communications, the next leap is automatic. Who supplied them? The internet's version claims a trusted veteran was involved, that investigators had unusually specific logistics. Repeated enough, it became part of the narrative's architecture. Then, the legal reality landed.
A lot of times you have him with a younger female, and there's a power dynamic there. A more impressionable girl is easier to reel in. Consent is between the people that are engaging, and I wasn't there in these situations to understand the consent.
July 2025. A verdict that surprised many. Not guilty on the most extreme charges, but guilty on 2 transportation-related counts. He was initially held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, but after sentencing, he was transferred. And this detail matters for the story's pulse. He was sent to the Federal Correctional Institution at Fort Dix, New Jersey. Fort Dix makes it current. As of early 2026, the appeal is in motion. There's even a projected release date, people repeat, May 8th, 2028. Then, another fresh detail. In early 2026, Diddy's Beverly Hills home was reportedly pulled from the market again. To believers, this was proof the story isn't done, that moves are still being made behind the scenes. And through it all, the rumor machine keeps circling back to Shante. The story people tell isn't just that Diddy fell, it's that he fell for a reason, and that reason connects to the Broadus marriage. This is where the narrative expands beyond revenge into pure strategy, and that's where Death Row re-enters the picture. Snoop's acquisition of the label was a historic, full-circle moment. But Suge Knight, from prison, framed it as theft. He claimed the deal was manipulated through corporate connections the public can't see. In hip-hop, a claim like that is never just noise. It's a warning. It's positioning.
Tick-tock, tick-tock, the clock is ticking on Diddy, because on Friday he finds out what his sentence is going to be, but today he found out what prosecutors would like that sentence to be, and it is vastly different from what his attorneys have suggested to the judge. Prosecutors want him to do 11 years, just over 11 years.
Critics noted the optics, how fast the Death Row brand was sanitized, made mainstream, family-friendly. For someone once accused of glorifying the streets, it was the ultimate redemption arc, unless that redemption came at someone else's expense. Observers connect the dots. Distancing from Diddy even quietly would insulate the Broadus brand from contamination. Being on the safer side of the line would protect future business deals. That's a CEO's move, not just a rapper's. And Shante sits at the center of that business identity. To outsiders, she is the loyal wife dragged into a scandal. But to those who claim to know the enterprise, the picture is more complex. As manager, Shante is no bystander. She's involved in key decisions. Insiders claim she pushed for safer positioning and long-term stability. So when Diddy's allegations spread, some allege Shante advised Snoop to distance himself legally and morally.
Well, we all know that. I have to say, I'd never heard of this movie, and I have little kids. It was called Lightyear from 2022. I have absolutely no problem with the content. Like, he had a problem with the content in that movie. I have no problem at all. I thought that was presented as a brief history part of this movie. It wasn't a big part of the movie, and gay couples exist, and gay marriage is legal, and I found it all completely unproblematic. That said,
from anything connected to that lifestyle. That raises a loaded question. Was she just protecting her husband? Or was she helping prepare the conditions for a takedown that would permanently separate their empire from one of the most toxic names in entertainment? Some insiders push it further, alleging Shante played a role in gathering information, digital trails, communications, archives, anything to keep the family clean while the storm moved elsewhere. If true, it changes her role entirely, not just a potential victim, but a strategist. This paradox, the alleged target becoming the quiet engine of a downfall, is why the narrative won't die. And Suge Knight knows it. That's why he keeps teasing a bigger smoke. He warns of a tell-all book that will reveal who really sold out who. Most dismiss it as bitterness, but then talk began of subpoenas reaching into old death row financial documents. Suddenly, Suge's rant sounded less like random revenge and more like a man trying to get ahead of a story before it reaches him. The contrast is stark, and it's why the industry keeps whispering. While Diddy counts days inside, Snoop attends board meetings and family dinners. It's a dramatic reversal that makes people ask, did Snoop outmaneuver a system that consumes everyone, or is he simply a survivor who traded timing and silence for safety? But the whispers are growing. Claims that Diddy is speaking privately with journalists, teasing other names. If his appeal gains leverage, this could reignite overnight. At the same time, Shantae's announced memoir, Paid the Cost to be the Boss Lady, looms. Its timing feels strategic. A single, carefully worded chapter could either cool the speculation or pour gasoline on it. Insiders warn this is bigger than one case, that other files exist, other names. One former executive put it bluntly, if he helped them once, he can help them again. And everyone knows it. Whether true or not, that fear alone reshapes an entire industry. Artists distance themselves. Camps split quietly. Nobody wants to be close when the next headline hits. This is no longer about revenge versus punishment. It's about the possibility of a reckoning across the hip-hop establishment itself. A generation that ruled through swagger and secrecy now faces an era where private behavior doesn't stay buried. And at the center of it all stands Snoop Dogg and Shantae Broadus. Twin pillars, one of legacy, one of loyalty. Both carrying knowledge that could shake the foundations of the culture they helped build. So the real question remains, when the next wave of information drops, will Snoop still be seen as the ultimate survivor who played it smart? Or will he become the next name everyone cannot stop saying out loud? The clock is still ticking. This storm is far from over.